I just had to clean up some storage space, so I came up with a totally new idea. I'm right about everything, and so are you. But we often disagree. Like parentheses, we often disagree. Or the asterisk, but we were afraid to ask. No. Yeah, did your parents have that Isaac Asimov book? It had the asterisk. My parents were, whatever, that generation. Listen, have the confidence of your worldview. Have the confidence of your opinions. But allow facts and new information to change your opinions over time, to slowly transform your worldview. You're supposed to have an evolving worldview. And my mother was a science teacher, so she was big on evolution. Evolution, as a Christian, I'm thinking, there's some holes in the theory. Were Adam and Eve primates? Technically, I think they were human. I think even though gorillas are very similar and chimpanzees are very similar to human beings, they are very human-like. But there's only one human species, right? Only one human race. We have different genetics, different ethnicities, but there is only one human race. Squirrels are smart. Chimpanzees are smart. Oh. Animals are very intelligent. I mean, they give them credit. Cats are extremely intelligent. We happen to have a couple of polydactyl cats, and one of my cats actually utilizes his thumb. He reaches into a bag just like a human, and he can scoop out cat food because he's learned how to use the thumb that he's not supposed to have. Is that evolution? No, it's a mutation. Polydactylism, no matter what creature it's in, it's a mutation. It's not evolution. But for him, it's a mutation he doesn't mind. He utilizes it. Would you find it impossible to sit down with a group of people who have worldviews different from you? In that respect, my brother and I were very similar. My brother is no longer with us. When he was an exchange student in Germany, and he never really learned to speak German very well, he just complained. They kept saying den, 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 D-E-N-N. If you had to live there, you would learn to speak the language. But isn't it interesting how languages evolve over time? The immigrant population in Europe is going to change the way the language is spoken. And I find it so interesting. I find it so fascinating. That there can be people in the southern part of the United States that pronounce things differently, and they have sayings and idioms that we don't use. Like, there's no flies on you. I don't think we say that in Ohio. What does that mean? I don't know. I have to hear it again in context. There's no flies on him. It's almost like you're not fooling him or something like that. I'd rather not use fly idioms. Flies are kind of gross. So, anyway. I think we can live in the same city and people pronounce things differently. Even, in the other zip code, they just have a way of talking, and it's just like this. Like, she's a Valley-Girl, for sure, for sure. Ooh. I don't know that I could stand it. I would have to become one of them. So I'm really glad. I mean, I had a cousin who moved to a different state, and at first she's like, yeah, like, people are just, like, so snobby and blah, and then she became just like, oh, no. Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry it happened to you. That's called affluenza. It's a disease. So that's why, if you're a person like me, naturally an introvert, and I do like to listen to other people. Sometimes when I talk, they'll listen for a little bit and they can only tolerate so much. Then they start interrupting me or making fun of me, right? It's like, what is that? The sling thing? Yeah. The blind leading the blind. These group session things are ridiculous. Yet, I've heard things from people and it makes me think, yeah, boy, I feel bad, I hate my mother. She's toxic. I'll never talk to her. I'm like, oh, I feel so bad, I feel bad for the mom and for you because I could be that mom, right? I literally am that mom and you don't even know it. I hate Christians. They're just so judgmental. And then I'm sharing, I love God and I love the Bible. And they're like, oh, really? And, they're not saying anything mean. So it's called a safe space, but yeah. Don't we have our right to our own worldview? If somebody wrote a book about your life, who wrote so many different books that were semi-autobiographical, and yet they were fictionalized? Who comes to mind? That's right, C.D., Charles Dickens, David Copperfield, Oliver Twist, Great Expectations, the list goes on. What a prolific writer. Are you partial to the Brontes? I'm partial to Charlotte Bronte. I'm partial to her. I'm partial to Jane Eyre. You can have Elizabeth Bennet. You can have Pride and Prejudice. Give me my Jane Eyre. Give me my Jane Eyre. Oh. But Charles Dickens, wow, what a talented man. Mind exploding with so many thoughts, so many ideas. And we know he's making some stuff up. It's stories that he's telling, just like A Christmas Carol. We see that every Christmas, correct? Christmas Carol with Ebenezer Scrooge. Everybody knows Ebenezer Scrooge. Goodness. Yet, if you look at that man's actual life, he didn't live a morally upright life in some respects. Neither did Mark Twain. Mark Twain was a wonderful author. He was also an atheist, at least at one point he was. He said the Bible contains upwards of 1,000 lies. Well, I don't know, was he like Satan's mouthpiece or something? And yet he's famous for Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn. Enjoy what other people have to say. Enjoy their personality, their worldview. But people cannot be right about everything. And this is the problem with strong personalities in society. The weak among us, I think I count myself in that crowd, we tend to gravitate toward the object that has larger mass. That's the stronger personality. And then you realize, wow, they are really wrong about some things. I may still have to be in your orbit. I realize that because you have the greater gravitational mass. But that doesn't mean that I agree with everything that you say. In fact, you're very wrong about some things. Maybe you have a boss like that. You want them to understand you. Now you need to listen. You need to understand. And maybe they should. Maybe they should. But how can you force somebody to change? There's only one that has experienced everything that you've experienced. And one who knows every thought. One who cares for you. One who has your best interests at heart. Listen, it's not a parent. Don't make your parent into a god. Don't make your boss into a god. Don't even make your spouse into a god or a goddess. There's only one who's the lover of your soul, Jesus Christ. One nobody else understands. Sorry, I'm just crying. You know, Jesus is the one that says, I know you. I know you're not going to just wallow in your misery. If you were that kind of a person, you know, you would need lots of help from other people. But I know that you're a lot like your dad. You don't let life get you down. You're prone to relying on things a little bit too much, whether it could be gambling or something like that. I don't gamble. But that doesn't mean you're defeated. You know, defeat is when, I mean, I have to be honest with you folks. I mean, I'm sharing this with you. Defeat is being in the prime of your life and falling off your apartment building. Falling off? How did that happen? Person that doesn't have Jesus. As hostile as my dad was toward religion, especially during my early childhood, I think he evolved into loving God and understanding God, and it was so hard for him because gambling was so important to him. Money was really kind of was his God. So was he very successful? I wouldn't say so, that whole gambling thing. But he kept trying it, he kept trying. Well, this is going to work. Next time it's going to work. Next time it's going to work. And you realize this is an empty idol that you're giving your obeisance to. Obeisance, how do you spell it? O-B-E-I, obeisance. You're worshiping at the wrong altar. What can I say? The guy didn't go to heaven. I pray that he did. And toward the end of his life, he wasn't as articulate. He wasn't able to express himself very much because of the nature of dementia. He didn't want that to happen to him, and it did. Job said, "The thing I have greatly feared has come upon me." I'm determined that is not going to happen to me. You know, drinking too much coffee can cause your brain to shrink. I think I told you that yesterday. It could cause you to get high blood pressure. Too much of a good thing, you see? Some people eat a little bit too much. Well, I got to put GLP-1 into me. Well, then you're going to have stomach paralysis? I mean, you don't know. Isn't it better to be fat than to be maimed for life? I'll settle for fat any day over a tapeworm, maimed for life. That's me. Who cares, who cares? I went to the 1980s when girls had to be like super duper 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 skinny, like it's cocaine skinny. We didn't realize that. There were those skinny girls that they're just stick-like people. And some people have that in their genes naturally. Others are more like, I think about the people in my graduating class that were the meanest. They were also the fattest because they felt bad about themselves, so they had to find a way to hate other people because they hated themselves so much. Well, that's the way it was when I was in high school. I graduated at age 17, and We had goths before there was such a term. There was a girl who was like the coolest person, dyed her hair black, dressed in black, just nice, easygoing. We didn't really have piercings back then. We didn't really have tattoos. No, not really. Only sailors got tattoos. We didn't have, yeah, some people did kind of like pierce the cartilage of their ear 57 times. I guess that was a sign that of more things to come. Now all of a sudden, all cartilage is, there's a spot of cartilage on my face. I've got to pierce it. Are we going to extremes, folks? I could just say, sorry. What kind of a person do you want to be remembered as? An uptight person? Well, if I'm nice to people, then people will take advantage of me. Oh yeah, like if you're a prison matron, you can't afford to be too kind to people. I know, I've seen that in action. Well, we think there's kindness in there somewhere, but there's got to be a lot of braggadocio and a lot of mean, on the surface. Otherwise, you couldn't keep that job, because people would, I guess, they would take advantage of you. See, since I'm not a prison matron, I'm not that way. But as a parent, don't you have to have standards? Don't you have to be tough? Just speaking for myself, but I think a lot of people can relate to this. Do you wish that your parent had been tougher about some things? Do you wish that they had really forced you to clean your room? Oh, I don't know. I began to say this a while ago. I was a pretty good student in school, and my parents just kind of gave up and said, well, she'll never be good at math. She's not good at math. But if you had pushed me, I could have been brilliant at math. White people do not push their kids. Where is my, what is that? Dragon mother or something? You can cry and whine all day long. My mother never loved me, and she pushed me to do this, and she forced me to practice, and blah, 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 blah. I wish my mom had pushed me a little bit more, and I'd be living in your zip code. And I wouldn't be a valley girl, that's for sure. Wow, if only my parents had higher expectations of me and pushed me and stopped being so 1970s touchy-feely. Oh, it's all about feelings. We have to strike a balance, folks. I was just listening to Joseph Prince the other day. I think it was actually Sunday, his latest sermon, because I'm part of the live church of the Joseph Prince Ministries. He said his daughter didn't do well on a certain exam that they have to have in Singapore, and yet they didn't sweat it, and then she graduated at the top of her class. And when she went to college, it's like, not everybody has a Cinderella story. Not everything is that dramatic. But he said, sometimes your kids don't want to, it's not their bent to be a business major. Maybe they need to be an interior decorator. Let them be who they are. Let them follow their natural bent. So for me, I was pressured to be like my mom, because my mom pretty much self-taught. She was brilliant at every subject. But did she ever get a C in her life? And I remember studying so hard after my parents' divorce, and I was put in the advanced math class where my best friend was. And I was struggling so terribly. I studied and I studied so hard, and my mom wasn't helping me. She's a math teacher, a math and science teacher. And I got a C+, and I was just so proud of that C+, because I knew I had tried my very best. And my best friend says, I could get a C+ without even really trying. But I still, to this day, it's like, I'm so happy with myself. You get these creative ideas when somebody isn't there to really teach you the rules of math. You just start developing these very creative theories about how math works. Just wrong. Oh, okay. Well, the symbols didn't really mean what I thought they meant. You really got a 16 on your ACT and a 31 on your verbal. 16 in the math, 31 on the verbal. Yeah. Well, So I just have to say, identify the talents that your children have, encourage them. You know, going back to my messy room, there's something mathematical about organizing things. There's something that is brain training about people organizing their environment. I didn't realize that I had that talent. I was one of those kids that had a messy desk, I had a messy locker. I mean, you would think that a crazy, like Albert Einstein's hair, that's, my hair naturally is kind of like Albert Einstein's hair, which is not my fault. If you're a brilliant astrophysicist, you can get away with it. Not if you're not a brilliant astrophysicist. Putting things in order is something, it takes deliberate concentration. For me, it takes a lot of energy. Is it because I am autistic? Well, obviously, you're not autistic. You're just making excuses for being a big slob. No, really. I don't know. I don't know what happened to me in utero during the process of birth when the labor was induced, when I came out with a small head that's stayed with me. You should have given me more time in the crock pot, Mom. I should have been 8 pounds, not 6 pounds. My brain didn't have a chance, my cranium, It's not my fault. Oh. But as I was saying, my mom would just nag me, clean your room. And then I would never clean it, and eventually she would just clean it herself. So I think my children's lives are a little bit better, but it was only me. It was only me and my snack wrappers. I'm sorry, it is like that Weird Al Yankovic cassette tape that I ordered from Columbia Records, I think for 1 cent. When I lived in the trailer, it's like, there's just junk everywhere. My room was like that. It was. And then, as an adult, I found it so difficult to put things in order. I just... old food would just rot on the counter, and I just, what is wrong with you? Now I realize, I don't want that. It's going to, create a bunch of fruit flies. The fruit flies, you don't be spraying things everywhere. Throw the rotten food away. It might be rotten potatoes, rotten bananas, something's rotting. An old cup of milk. What's that smell? Don't spray air freshener. Find the source of the smell. You're going to have such a happy... Well, are you holding yourself up to be this tidy person? I'm tidy with regard to what I used to be. I'm sorry, in comparison, what I used to be. I'm so much tidier. And yet you're sitting in a very messy environment, aren't you, with trash bags? I'm not sure I can do this, right now. My physical health, I don't want to have a heart attack trying to clean up this room. Quite honestly, I'm having issues. Issues of, I don't want to have a heart attack, a stroke, an aneurysm. You realize that. But it's not really hurting anybody. I mean, my husband's okay with it. But I'm a person, I always wash my hands when I come out of the restroom. Now, I have to make a little confession here. What if you had a relative that after they only did number 1 in the women's restroom, they wouldn't even use soap, they just rinse off their hands? Did you have a relative like that? I did, and I followed that example, and that's just so disgusting. You know? Believe me, it's okay to get to know a germaphobe. It's okay if they're part of the family. But then the germaphobes, you don't want to go to their extreme. I mean, did your parents put raw meat on a plate and then put it on the grill and then return the cooked meat to the same plate that the raw meat was on, and you complained and they thought you were fanatical? But really, that's not safe practices. That's contaminated. You should know that. As a science teacher, not naming names. And yet there are people that just take it to extremes, and they'll spend like several hours a day just washing their hands. I mean, to the point where, I mean, it's debilitating for them. Are you the person who's influenced one way? Like, who cares? One of her favorite things she used to say was, "You eat a peck of dirt before you die." Well, I mean, we should try to avoid dirt, though. Really, we should, shouldn't we? Shouldn't we? I mean, yeah, I guess like a gnat could fly into your throat and you might swallow it, but you don't do it on purpose, right? I mean, you don't like see the gnat coming and open your mouth wide, right? Right? Okay, okay. Wow. Where was I going with this? What was the origin of this message? What? Your perspective should always be changing. Don't get locked into a certain mindset. I can agree, for example, I can agree with a person on a lot of cultural issues, but then your politics are so out of whack. 180 degrees out of phase. I mean, you believe this and yet you vote this way? That's why I'm not. I'll let other people do the preaching when it comes to politics. And, you know, some of the people that would agree with you politically, they're kind of bigoted sometimes, aren't they? Like, I mean, I still don't forget this, you know, because periodically, you know, listen, there's this whole struggle of trying to be blonde, and I could never actually do it because anytime I tried to dye my hair blonde, it would kind of turn yellow. It really would. And I actually went to like this very high-class salon one time. They said, you know, blonding is going to be a gradual process. So, I mean, it turned out okay, but it was just like the most washed out color because I couldn't be blonde yet. I'd have to come back for a second treatment. I was just like I hated, it was just so washed out. It was just like, ugh, mousy brown, you know. Now, if that's your natural color, that's great. But for me, it's like, oh, you know, you took my natural hair color and you turned it into dirty dishwater. And I feel so, I just dyed my hair black after that. So periodically, because I couldn't go blonde, I would dye my hair black. And, sometimes people would think that I'm Hispanic because I would dye my hair black. And there was one time I was with my husband at a local, this has been at least a decade ago, more than a decade, a local, like a pharmacy, CVS type place, maybe Walgreens in your area. And I was with my husband and we were purchasing things. And I put paper towels on the counter. And the cashier just looked at my husband and said, "Anything else, sir?" Like, she doesn't think I'm his wife. She thinks I'm Hispanic. You know, you can tell she's just bigoted and racist and, you know. No, I'm his wife, actually, and I'm not Hispanic. Hello? But even if I were Hispanic, you know, that's the thing. It's like, I can see it. I can see it, like, you live in a sanctuary city? Yeah, pretty much, I think I such. I mean, I could go to Springfield anytime I want. I just choose not to go. Live and let live. Maybe you're married to somebody. Well, if they're not here legally, then they have to just get. I don't know. I would trade in some of these uptight white people for some of these humble brown people that come here that don't bother me. They're not causing me any problems, and they contribute something positive to the culture. Well, you can't say that, and somebody will not listen to me. I will not hear that. But, it really does depend on the person, folks. It depends on the individual. That's what I think the Declaration of Independence and our American Constitution, I think that's what it's all about. People have a right, you have a right to speak your mind, but you don't, oh, I'm sorry, I'll be there soon. You don't have a right to be angry and judgmental and force-feeding people your worldview. In other words, you don't have a right to be a Stalinist because that's un-American, so just going to leave it at that. Thank you for listening. Please listen with an open mind and an open heart, and then you'll find your perspective broadens, and you'll be better for it. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.